America is no accident. It was created by the miraculous design of God. We're part of God's story, His story, history. Jesus is the playwright, the producer, and the director of His story. And we are the cast. We have parts to play. We have lines to deliver. God didn't stop the story with the completion of the Bible. In our next class, we'll see some amazing examples of how God worked miracles in America, very similar to the miracles of Israel. Now, the second point is this. This country is the only nation in all of history to be founded and grounded upon the principles of the Bible. The worldview of early America was clearly biblical, and the result was the 5,000-year lead. American Christianity blessed the world by bringing the light of God into all the disciplines: law, science, philosophy, economics, ethics, education, and so on. Alexis De Tocqueville was a French philosopher and a writer who was amazed by the success of America and studied it to find out the reasons for its greatness. And he said this: "There is no country in the whole world in which the Christian religion retains a greater influence over the souls of men than in America." I'm going to read to you a quote from Dr. Keenan Curtin of the Family Research Council. He says, "Christianity is under attack. The culture war has been raging for at least 50 years in America. It's a war against our nation's Christian heritage. It's a war against the biblical accounts of our origins as created human beings. It's a war against our biblical convictions about unborn human life as being sacred and precious. It's a war against our biblical beliefs about human sexuality being only for a man and a woman in a marriage relationship. It's a war against our biblical values of faith and family. It's a war against our freedom of religious expression. We are at war. Whether or not you are engaging the enemy, he is engaging you. Why join the battle, he asks? Well, it's a foundational biblical truth that God expects His people to join Him on His mission to redeem and to transform our lost world. The problem is that many Christians today want to limit the mission to the saving of the soul, while excluding the concept of changing the culture. This narrow understanding of God's mission finds its expression in a kind of Christian dualism, a schizophrenia, if you will. It's a misconception of reality that on one hand regards church-related activities such as worship and fellowship, discipleship and ministry and evangelism as being spiritually significant and worthy of effort, but on the other hand regards everything else outside this sacred realm as secular and therefore having no real spiritual significance. Consequently, engaging the culture in the arenas of government and education, entertainment, the arts, media, science, etc. is deemed unimportant and even a distraction. This tendency to erect an impenetrable wall of separation between the sacred and the secular, he says, is one of the most debilitating problems hindering the contemporary church when it comes to impacting our communities, our states, and our nation as the salt and light that we're called to be. This false approach to Christianity has serious consequences, not the least of which is the secularization of society, since it causes Christians individually and the church collectively to retreat from engaging the culture because we call it irrelevant and even non-spiritual. Yet, if we don't take on the responsibility that the Lord Jesus gave us to function as salt and light in the world, is there any reason why the culture shouldn't become thoroughly corrupt and that society shouldn't become plunged into utter spiritual darkness? Here's the bottom line, he says. Because of this falsely erected wall of separation, sincere but misguided believers have handed over the culture and society to the powers of sin and darkness by default. Not only is this dualism an unbiblical perspective on Christian living, it's in fact a heresy, a doctrine of demons, if you will. For what better strategy could the devil devise than to convince believers that the soul may belong to God but that society belongs to him? In place of this insidious dualism, he says, we need to recover a biblically based worldview that rightly places all of life under the rule of God. Now, we're responsible to confront the world with the knowledge of mercy and grace and sin and judgment, and to do that in every issue of life. We need to be the people holding the sign on the side of the road, warning the drivers that there's a bridge out ahead. And in order to do that, we are responsible to not be ignorant and unlearned in regard to today's issues, the issues that affect us all. Christian Americans influenced the world in the past because the Christians diligently sought after God and then fought for and debated and convinced the world of their worldview. But today, if the American church doesn't become more aggressive, I'm afraid that we'll be known to be just like the Church of Laodicea, lukewarm. Ronald Reagan said, history may well judge that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent it from happening. Let that not be said of us.